Now introducing the Minor Wisdom Trio!
Minor Wisdom!
T-Tech is done. T-Tech was a success. T-Tech will be back next year in the same place. This week I've got Kayla Stewart on. Once again, someone I've been hoping to get on for quite some time. And I finally did. Here comes the music abruptly ending, even though there's a fade on it. Whatever. But I've got Kayla on, and it was really nice chatting with her because I, again, have tried to have her on. We'll talk about it. She's at Temple High School, and we talk about kind of her predecessor and how she followed her and all that kind of stuff. And great conversation. As my dogs bark in the background, they are agreeing. But I do want to focus on the recap of T-Tech. That almost rhymes. The recap of T-Tech. There you go. It was a blast. It was so much better than last year. And not that last year sucked. It's just, as the programmer, as the one that decided on who was workshop or leading workshops and all that kind of stuff, you know, that I am a people pleaser. I want to make sure everyone is pleased and happy. I know that might sound funny to some people that know me, but there were even some people, I'm not going to out them, but that made sure that I knew this year that it has taken some time to understand me, right, as a personality. And so it does take some time to understand me. You can ask anybody that is good friends with me or best friends or married to me or my children. It takes some time to get to understand who I am. But I will tell you, one of the first things I am is a people pleaser. I want to make sure everybody's happy. Like, I'm a host. I'm a party host. That's why I used to host a party for many years called the Minor Bash. And I only stopped doing it because I got married and had kids. Otherwise, I'd still be doing it. But it was called the Minor Bash. Huge deal. Huge party. Huge. But I wanted to make sure, last year we had quite a few workshop artists have empty workshops. Nobody showed up. Quite a few. And part of that was the programming was just too much. We had 15. We had literally had 150 workshops offered in practically a 48-hour time period. And when there aren't kids around, teachers enjoy themselves at night and sometimes have a hard time waking up in the morning. So, some of those morning sessions weren't attended, plus being in Houston last year, or Sugar Land, if you will, the locals didn't come back for the last day, so it was just thin, right? So I was hoping that this year it wouldn't be like that, and it really wasn't. We did have a couple of workshops that didn't get filled, but it was always the last of the person's set of workshops. So they'd already done it 2, 3, 4, in one case 5 times. So I was very happy with that. Also, we had Cameron Ware. If you're not familiar with Cameron Ware, I'm going to have him on soon. He is the projector extraordinaire and just a phenomenal person. His wife was there with him and had lots of great insight as well. But we had them on the Saturday, and I am recording this Saturday evening. Normally I record this on a Friday night just to get it out of the way, but he's the owner-founder of Lightwear Labs. And one of the nicest people, his wife Courtney, one of the nicest people, great to see them and to finally just see him at work outside of a theater. Like, I've seen his work inside of a theater, but it was fun to see him teach, because that's what we do. And so that was really, really nice. It was good to just have, we had a group from People Like Us. I highly recommend you look them up. Kirsty Lewis. They were great. They led a few workshops. One of the people that they had, Lisa Smith, was one of the presenters with them. They had a group of them, 3 of them, to present. And Lisa has Down syndrome, and talked a lot about how she goes about her life as an actress and how she has been incorporated into shows. And an inclusive environment and all this kind of stuff. And it was just, I don't know, man. I was really, really happy with it. With how things turned out this year. I had one complaint, me personally, and that was just the eggs in the morning breakfast burritos were quite runny. It was like they made them in water and didn't drain the water or something. I don't know, man. But that was my one complaint. And, we're going to make some adjustments. There were lots of, you can't be complacent, right? You can't just do everything the same the next year. That's not our style with Texas Thespians. Never has been. That's kind of other festival styles, and that works for those festivals, but that's not. Texas Thespians is always looking to what can we make better, what can we do a little different that people might like, things like that. And I think we did that this year, and we'll only keep growing. You got to remember that this was a young conference. We had 3 or 4, and then COVID happened and really put a monkey wrench in things. And then we came back last year, and it was, still people trying to figure out if they really wanted to or what this was and wanted to do it and all that kind of stuff. And then this year we built on that, and I think next year's just going to be awesome. I will tell you, if you're planning a season, if you're planning your musicals, and I get it, if you want a band for your musicals, if you want live music, it's really difficult to get those musicians, especially if they're students, at any time other than January. I totally get it. But if you are looking for, your calendar planning, just try. I don't think anything's official yet. Everybody knows we'll be back at Rockwall next year, but if I were to be a betting man, I would say that it's probably going to be a very similar weekend. So if you can, try your best to be at T-Tech next year. Every person you talk to at T-Tech, including most of the vendors, had a phenomenal time. And it's just a different environment. It's a lot of fun, and I hope to see you there next year. And if you were there, what I'd love to hear is some feedback on what workshops worked best and what you liked about them. That is not a guarantee that we're going to have those same artists back. We're trying really hard not to have repeat presenters. I know there were some, but they're not a lot. So if you liked a certain something, we can bring somebody else in with a perspective. And I'm only saying this just because it's fresh on my mind, but we had Michael Song. Michael Song did a workshop on 3D printing. Great workshop. Great feedback from that. He showed us some of the stuff that he had made, but he's not the only one that does 3D printing, right? Not to say that we wouldn't want to have him back, but we could have somebody I know, Mel Edwards. We could have Mel Edwards come in and teach 3D printing. They're different perspectives. We don't do the same things, right? So anyway, that's that. Football's on, so I'm going to wrap this up, but I want you guys to really enjoy Kayla Stewart. She's just a phenomenal human. I've been able to sort of bits and pieces get to know her at different teaching events, and I finally was able to get her on the record on the podcast on Minor Wisdom, and I know you're going to enjoy this interview. So please stay tuned. I'm also going to add a little something special because I thought about, I need to do some changes, not just to T-Tech, but to my podcast. So podcast. So I'm going to do that. So you'll kind of get that in just a minute. But enjoy this with Kayla Stewart. Buy a shirt. Friend me on Facebook. Do all those good things. All right. Bye.
I want to say I'm very excited to be on here. This is a great opportunity. So thank you for having me on. So I started my theater journey like most people in middle school and high school. I was heavily involved in my high school theater department, and I wanted to pursue acting. And 17-year-old Kayla got denied. And so I switched my major to pre-pharmacy, and I went to the University of Mary Hardin Baylor. And about a semester in, I decided, what am I doing? This is not what God wants me to do. I think I want to teach. And I called my mom, and she was like, oh my, you're not going to make any money. And she was not happy with that decision at first. And so it was sort of weird as I was like into the semester, and I wanted to change my major. Mary Hardin Baylor does not have a theater program. So I decided to stay there, and I switched my major to communication with a minor in education. And I am a firm believer that everything happens for a reason and things fall in place for a reason. And so I did my student teaching. When it was time to do my student teaching, they placed me at Temple High School. And I really knew nothing about the program. I knew nothing about the directors. So I kind of went in blind. So I was 21 and I walked into Natasha Tollison's classroom and immediately fell in love. And that was when I knew Temple is going to be my home forever. And this is something that I really want. So I did my student teaching in the fall and I graduated in December, and Natasha was like, so what are your plans after? And I said, I think I'm going to take a semester off. And she told me that was a stupid idea. So the only thing open, in January that I could find was a middle school in Dallas. And I did that for a semester, and her assistant position came back open. And so I applied for that, and I came back to Temple. So I was only in Dallas for like 4 months, and then came back to Temple, and I've been there ever since. This is I start my 8th year of teaching in January.
Wow.
And I just graduated with my master's
Yep.
2 days ago from the University of Houston. And I decided to go back and pursue that actually like right when COVID happened. I had applied. And so that journey was sort of crazy. And this is my first year as the head director at Temple High School. So it's been a great journey.
So you and I would have been on the same. We would have not been in the same program exactly, but I was going to go back and do a PhD at UH at the same exact time, but you stuck through and I did not. So because of the COVID stuff, yeah. So how was that a challenge to you for this? Because I know the master's program was a summer, 3 summer program. How was that a challenge to you? Because I know that there were some online elements that weren't initially meant to be online and things like that. So what kind of adjustments did you have to make?
Well, our cohort is very unique in the fact that we started completely virtual. So our whole first year was virtual. The next summer was in person and virtual. So we did our in person that summer, and then we did our virtual internship with the Lincoln Center. And then this past summer was completely in person. And so it was like different every summer. We just sort of didn't know what to expect, and we had to go with the flow. And Jessica is just so incredible in guiding us through that process.
Yeah, and congratulations, by the way. I should have led with that, but
Thank
because
you.
I saw the social media because you were in there with Tynesha and Joy, and yeah, and so I saw all those. My timeline was riddled with graduation announcements and pictures and cool stuff like that. So congrats for you.
Thank you.
Walking into Temple right out of high school. Did you know, or not out of high school, out of college? Did you know who Natasha was?
I did not.
Yeah,
I really,
or
truly
is I should say is for the record.
Yeah.
Sorry, continue.
No, I didn't. I didn't know much about her or the program.
Yeah,
And so walking in, I really had no idea what to expect. And I found out very quickly the level that she operated at. And that was something that to me was so intriguing. And I knew like, I want to be a part of this department. And I saw the way that she ran things and how successful they were and how invested the kids were. And I feel like I just knew this is a place where I want to be. And this is a challenge, that I want to take on. And I didn't have any experience. My undergrad wasn't even in theater. So walking into that program and then, as a student teacher and then coming back to work for her was really just a learning experience because I didn't know anything. I was 22 years old when I first started and I didn't know anything.
right. How is it for you? So I've got and we can I don't want to get into necessarily a darker side of things at any point during this, but I have deceased parents, and they weren't around long enough to understand exactly what I do, right? But your mother's still around, and have you been able to, and that sounded very cold and dark, and I apologize, but
Yeah.
has she been able to learn with you what it is that your job entails, and like what theater is and stuff? Because my parents didn't have theater background, and you yourself said, when I told my mom I wanted to go teach this, has she now, it's 8 years later, you went and got a master's in the thing. So obviously it's something you enjoy and have kind of fallen into and love. Has she kind of also been along this journey of getting educated in the world of theater and education?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
My mother is incredible. She is my biggest supporter.
Yeah.
And, I did theater in high school. And so she saw that world. But then when I stepped into this, it's like the amount of hours that we
Yeah.
put in and the amount of work that we put in was all sort of brand new to her. And, she would call me at 10 at night and I'm still at the school. And so, she's having to learn with me, what this job and this role entails. And I'd like to touch on my father, if that's
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, please. I never know, because I deal with things a lot more unique and kind of disturbing, like my sister and I. So I never know where somebody wants to go. Please, I would love it.
No, I would, and I was thinking about this earlier. I listened to your episode with Jessica,
Yeah,
and Jessica and I have a very similar story. And I just feel like my father's passing, and it hasn't even been 6 months yet. But that is such an integral part of my story, and something that I feel like I need to share and I would like to share.
please.
So he got a liver transplant in March. And that whole process was just sort of crazy, and we didn't really know, what we were getting into. But what was so special about it was through the whole process, Natasha and all of the students were just so involved in what was going on in my life and so supportive. And anytime I needed to leave, this was during one act season. So I had to leave. I was back and forth between Fort Worth. I took like 4 weeks off of work consecutively. Like, it was just sort of crazy. And then of course I found out that I would be taking over the program in May. He was still in the hospital. And about a week before I was supposed to go to Houston to finish my last summer of grad school, my mom called me and said he was going on hospice. And so I packed up, went back to Brownwood, which is where I'm from. And I called Jessica and I was like, I don't know what to do. Like, can I do it virtually? I don't know what to do. And she was just so incredible and supportive through that whole process. Because she could have said, you can come back next summer and finish it, but she didn't. And we made it work, and we had to figure it out. So I was virtual for the first part of it. I was on Zoom, and then my father passed at the end of June, and I was back in Houston to finish out about a week after he passed. So, it was sort of a journey, and there was times where I didn't know, maybe I should just wait and come back next summer. But for my dad and my mom, my education has always been so important to them, and they've been so supportive that I felt like I need to go back and do this for myself and also for him. And it was not easy, going back to Houston and having to come back to class and 9 to 6 every day and doing homework. And, it wasn't easy. But everyone at University of Houston is just so incredible and so supportive. And they really, I don't think that I would be where I am without Jessica.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so, thank you for that. Yeah, we don't need to compare notes or anything, but my mother was in hospice, and I tell people, I will tell them until I'm gone that hospice is such a beautiful, it sounds so morbid, but it's such a, for me, it was such a beautiful experience because it's like, you know why you're there, and I'm kind of tearing
Yeah.
up. I apologize, but
No.
you know why you're there. You know what the goal is. You know what the end game is, and but there's no sudden element to it. It's everybody's there. It's peaceful. It's an environment created for comfort, and so I I'm glad that, you know, personally speaking, I'm glad that you got to do that and it wasn't a sudden thing, and you know, so anyway, we can
Yeah.
we can
No,
continue.
I am too. I am too. And
Yeah,
I think that, this is important for me
yeah,
to share. There was a time after he passed that I didn't know if I could go back.
right,
I didn't know. I really genuinely thought I can't go back and be the director that my kids need me to be.
right,
And in that moment, like I was hurting so bad. And I had just gotten the job as the head director and it was my dream role. And I was so excited, but I was like, how do you go back and 2 months later and be the person that your students need you to be? And I really struggled with that. And then, I'm like, I have to go back and I have to do this and I'm going to do it. And I think it really put into perspective why I do what I do.
yeah,
And I do it for them. You do it for the kids, and they knew, the situation, they knew what was going on. But coming back this fall after my dad had passed, it was scary, and it shouldn't have been because they love me so much and they're just great. And I think one thing that I've really taken away from this is how important it is to be honest
yeah,
with your kids. Um, we're human beings. And I think, sometimes they forget that. And being open and like vulnerable with your story, I think is just so important, and for anyone listening, I think they would agree. Like as educators, we've got to be honest.
yeah,
And when I was honest with like, I'm not okay today, or I'm feeling really anxious today, they were like, oh, okay, well, are you okay? Like they were fine. And being honest has really, I think, helped me improve as an educator, as well as, stepping into this role as a head director.
right. Well, good. Yeah, thank you. I hope that resonates with people. So, uh, now the job you have, you know, it's no secret that what your predecessor did was massive, and sometimes questionable to a lot of directors that she was competing against. But but I guess the secret out there, or maybe it's not a secret, but I remember Philip Taylor saying to me once, you know, Temple High School uh, doesn't have the money that Natasha makes it look like they have. And so for you, you know, rolling into that environment, and whether you're at Temple, you could be at Timbuktu, it doesn't matter what school you're at. Um, what have you been able to kind of do to make sure that you are continuing that, not necessarily continuing the exact legacy, but continuing that legacy and success and all that, but also carving out your own, you know, here's what Kayla's going to do kind of thing. What have you been able to do that?
Um, stepping into this role was not easy. And I think everyone knew it was going to be challenging. And at times I often feel like everyone's eyes are on me and everyone's, watching to see what Kayla will do with Temple. And so the dynamic of trying to find like the balance of, I need to do things a certain way and continue the traditions that we have, but also I'm my own person. And so many people have said, this is like a common phrase, those are such big shoes to fill. And my answer is always like, I have my own shoes and I'm my own person, and I'm not trying to fill anyone else's shoes or anyone else's role. And, Natasha and I have such a special relationship. I spent more time with her than I did my own family for 7 years, and so this transition has really been perfect. The kids have just wholeheartedly bought into it and have followed me and have trusted everything that I've said or done. Natasha's still there. I mean, she's, right down the street at Temple Civic Theater. And so she's still around. She still comes to see everything that we do and is still really supportive of us. So we started our season with Hairspray, and I decided to do that when I got the job in May. And so I made the decision to do Hairspray, and Natasha had done Hairspray maybe over 10 years ago. And, I started to think, what can I do different? Right? Like how can I show the community that Kayla is different? And this is Kayla's program now. And so I tried to do things a little different. My goal was never to come in and just completely change everything, because the kids need that stability. But for Hairspray, we used a live orchestra, and we brought in, I really wanted to make it a collaboration with all of the fine arts in our school. And we have an incredible fine arts department at Temple High School, and we all just get along so well. And so I did a live orchestra, and we haven't done a live orchestra at Temple High School in probably 20 years. And that was something that was really important to me, was sort of to get everybody on board. So we had the orchestra director, we had band students, orchestra students. We brought in kittens from our dance team. All of the choir kids were in it. So it was like this huge collaboration of fine arts all coming together to make this piece of beautiful art. And I think the community really appreciated that. And I think that was, I think now it was a smart move on my part to sort of, show that there are differences now. And I think Hairspray was extremely successful, and the community loved it. So, it's finding those little things that you can sort of change things up and show that you are your own person.
So something I'm going to do from now on, and maybe it'll last forever, but is a minor minute. It's going to be a tech theater history, or tech theater tips, or tech theater, just anything that will help you as the educator and be a little bit of an education for you. And this week I'm going to start with something that I know, which is DMX and lighting. Did you know that DMX started in the 80s as a universal way to signal lighting and fog machines and different things like that? Because at that point, all companies had their own proprietary way of signaling communication from board to light. And so now we have this 5 or 3-pin. DMX is really 5-pin, but there are 3-pin ways to do it. Not XLR, not microphone cables, but 3-pin DMX, if you will, that can signal from the light board to any sort of smart fixture, right? Or a fog machine. What you really need to know is that you can't interrupt the signal, because DMX sends 44 hits, 44 beats, I guess, if you will, per second to the light. So it keeps constant communication. So if you ever interrupt that, or if you ever have your lights glitching, check the connection. So I don't have a crack research team by any means, but when you just said we brought in kittens from our dance team, immediately someone doesn't think of that's the name of the dance team. I thought, so I just looked it up. That is, in fact, the kitten dance team. Okay.
Yes.
I'm looking at, okay. So it's not just, cats. Like it's
No.
dancing
There
cats.
were no live cats in Hairspray.
I was like, man, that's your stamp, is you're just completely changing musicals and adding animals into. So, okay, well, nice. So I've got to ask you about, and I know this isn't a video podcast at all, but there are two things that have caught my eye. One, I started off asking, but it was a little, again, you're small on my screen, but what is the significance to you of Frida Kahlo?
So I took 4 years of Spanish through high school, and then I took 2 years of Spanish in college. And in high school, I did a huge AP research project over Frida Kahlo. And she's always just really stuck with me, and her personality and her individuality. And so I've always just loved her art. And I bought that huge piece of art right there. That's my centerpiece, but I love her. I always have.
What is the stuff around? Is that stuff associated with her, or is that just other art pieces? It's very pretty.
Yeah, there's just different art pieces. These two pictures right here of the elephant and this temple, those were from my trip to Thailand.
Oh.
And I actually went to Thailand with just me and my dad.
Oh.
So those are really important to me. And there's this I got from my trip to Italy.
You should be a weather girl. You're very good at pointing to like, like you pointed right at it.
Um, this is
Yeah.
another piece of artwork, and this was a portrait of my grandma.
Okay.
So
All
we
right.
got
Yeah.
a good mixture going
Yeah.
on.
Okay. It's a nice little setting. And then the other thing that caught my eye is in your hair. You have a pencil in your hair, right? Is that a pencil?
No, this is a
Oh.
hair stick, and
Oh,
it
it's a
has
hair stick. Oh, okay.
yes.
Well, I'm
So
an
this
idiot.
hairstyle of my slicked back bun with the hair stick has sort of become my signature now.
Okay.
And one, because it's just easy, to
Yeah.
throw up in the morning, and two, the kids just love it and they always comment on it. So that has I do my hair like this very frequently.
It's not as interesting as I thought it was a pencil, and I was going to ask, why do you constantly keep a pencil with you? But from here, it just looked like a pencil. Now I feel like some, typical man, you know.
Well, now you
Horrible.
know.
Yeah, thank you. I don't have a signature hairstyle. I don't put my hair up in a bun. I can't say I ever have. So I don't know. The part where the bun should be is actually missing right now. So that's my problem. Um, okay, so you grew up doing high school theater. Um, what level was your high school competing at?
So I'm from Brownwood, and I
Okay.
went to Brownwood High School. My director was Larry Mathis,
Oh,
who is retired, and he really instilled that love of theater in me. I was always theatrical. I've always been, a performer. But being in that department, I think just instilled a love and a passion that I just couldn't get away from. Even when I tried and switched my major to pre-pharmacy, I couldn't get away from it. And so I really owe that to him, of that love. We did compete in one act, we did musicals, we did straight plays. And it was a really, really great place to be. And my younger brother, who is 16 right now, is also in that department. So that's been really fun to go back to Brownwood and watch him be in productions and see him at Texas Thespians. And
right.
that's been really special that we've both gone through that program.
So seeing him at Texas Thespians, is that like, how does that work for him to be like, there's my sister, and no offense to you, Kayla, but you don't look exactly your age. You look much younger. Do they think that you're a student, or do they think you're a teacher? Or like, who do his friends think you are?
Well, I think most of them were like, "Who is this woman you're talking to?" And then he said, "That's my sister." And thank you. I appreciate that. I still look youthful.
Yeah.
And I turned 29 this year. So,
Grandma.
but yeah, I saw him, and he's so funny because he's not like shy at all. Like, he loves to come up to me and hang out with me, and I'm like, I guess, his cool older sister.
Yeah.
So then all of his friends were like, "Oh my goodness, you're at Temple," and a lot of them knew Temple's reputation, and had seen things through one act, and so a lot of them knew the program before I even really introduced myself.
That's good. What are you like excited to see him go do? Like, what is it that, like, not that I don't want you to plan out his hopes and dreams, but like, is there something that you're kind of like excited that he doesn't know is coming, but is like kind of around the corner for him?
It's been interesting because we're like complete opposites. And he has always been really reserved and shy, and I have never been that way. And so when he initially joined theater, because I pressured him into it, it's so beautiful to watch him start to open up and start to perform on stage. And he has an amazing voice, and he's always been in choir, but he had never been in a show before. But he's not going to pursue theater. His goal is to go into the medical field. And I think that was really became a goal for him, like through the process of being in hospitals with my dad and seeing the good that he could do. And so I think that's sort of where that came from.
That's good. That's commendable. I was about to say he doesn't know that he's going to go in theater, but you just said yourself you were about to go to pharmacy school. So, and here you are now. I don't have a pharmacy podcast. I'm sure it exists, but it's not my cup of tea. What
I'd
is
rather be on this one.
Yeah, right. The pharmacy one is killing it right now. Just all kinds of talk about drugs. But yeah, I don't, what is it about Brownwood that is like? I don't know much about Brownwood. It's kind of stuck in the middle of lots of other places. But what is a fun fact about Brownwood, Texas? I see there's a
Well,
museum. I don't. Yeah,
there is.
yeah,
Brownwood is it just gives you such a hometown
yeah.
feeling. And not just because I pretty much grew up there, but just, there's something special about Brownwood to me. And it's such a beautiful community of people. And they have a community theater there. It's called The Lyric. And I have been asked to direct their summer camps there this summer. So I'm going to spend some time in Brownwood and work at The Lyric this summer.
Is it one of those like German founded area? Like, what's the origin of Brownwood?
I actually don't know.
You know how like there's certain parts of the state of Texas are
Mhm.
German settlers or the Mexican settlers when from way back when or things like that. So anyway,
Yeah,
that'd
I
be
actually don't
interesting.
know.
Well, you got to learn something now. Now you
I
got
know.
a goal. What are you most looking forward to down the line in your career? Like, what is it that um, I've got goals and things that I want to reach, and some of them I like to share with people, and some of them I don't because I don't want to hear laughter. But what are some goals that you particularly have that are kind of that 5, 10, 15 year plan for you?
So recently, when I went and got my master's for a couple different reasons. The first one was that I just wanted to be a better educator. I wanted to, because my undergrad is not in theater. And so I really wanted to go back and learn as much as possible so I could be the best director and educator for my students. The second was that I would love ultimately to teach at the collegiate level and teach theater educators in Texas because I think that it's so important. And there's so many young theater educators that really don't have the resources. They don't have mentors. They're at a school and they're all by themselves. And I think, to be that person that was a mentor to young theater educators and to teach theater educators, I think that it is my ultimate goal would be to do something like that because I've been helped by so many of the veteran directors in the state that I would love to be that person eventually for younger
That's
directors.
good. You don't sound like you're from Texas. Have you ever been told that before?
Yes, I have.
So where is it? Because
I'm not.
oh, so you're not from Texas.
No, I'm not.
So where does your voice come from? Where does your accent or lack of accent come from?
Well, I was born in Detroit,
Okay.
and we lived there for several years before we moved to Texas. My mom was from Michigan, and my dad was from Texas, and so we moved to Texas when I was younger. But I guess I've just never really
Picked it
got
up.
that accent. Yeah,
What part of Michigan?
Detroit.
Oh, you said that. You said that. Detroit.
Yeah.
My brain just immediately, I don't know why, just canceled that fact out. But so do you ever get back up to Michigan?
We haven't been in a while.
Okay.
We took a trip maybe 5 years ago. And that's the last time we've been.
Okay. Okay.
But most of my family has migrated now to Texas.
Oh, okay. 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 So
Yeah,
that
they've
makes
all
sense.
sort of moved down this way.
It's not as cold.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, that makes a lot more sense because yeah, you don't sound exactly you sound. I don't know if this is a thing. You sound more neutral. You just it's kind of like the thing of like broadcasters. You don't want your newscaster to sound like they're from your town. You want them to sound like they're from like just an American voice. So I've been told. Uh, has the world of theater uh, changed you in a way that you did not necessarily expect, or have you been able to sort of reflect back on your experiences in theater and realize, oh, I do this because of theater? And the reason I ask that, I'll give you how my brain works. The accent talk, I can tell you why I don't have an accent because of my time spent being trained as a voice actor in theater. I can get rid of the Texas if I need to. So that's why I'm asking, because my brain went to that question because of that. That's the spider web that is my brain. So you can answer now, and I'll shut up.
I don't know. I think a lot of things have changed me from theater.
Yeah.
And like I said earlier, I think this recent experience has really opened my eyes to why I do what I do. I mean, I've always loved teaching. It's always been my passion. I love my kids, but it forced me to realize why do I do theater? Why am I doing what I'm doing? Why am I spending these crazy hours? And it's because of my kids. And I have the best students in the whole world. And I have really just done everything for them. And I think that the theater, the theater is a place where you can teach life lessons.
Right.
And that's not common of most subjects in school. And so I feel a duty to teach my students life lessons. And the theater does that. And so I've sort of, because of the theater, changed my philosophy on things that I do and the way that I teach, because there are things that I want them to know and things I want them to learn that necessarily don't have anything to do with theater.
Are there, I kind of have a little bit of a personal mantra of work to your strengths, but improve your weaknesses. What are the weaknesses that you kind of want to, or would want to focus on, of like making sure that you improve those over time? Because I feel like you would probably have that same mantra.
Mm-hmm. So I guess I would say, the first 7 years that I spent with Natasha, I was the assistant. And, I did a little directing here and there, but I never directed any musicals, anything big. I was always the assistant. And I was forced to really learn the technical side of things. I think when I first started, I maybe knew how to turn the light board on and hang a light, and that was about it. And I vividly remember her telling me, there is nothing you can't teach yourself. And that has really stuck with me. There's nothing you can't teach yourself. And so I taught myself, how to work the light board, how to run intelligent lighting, how to, do all of these things.
Job or bad job, if nobody knows what a good job or bad job looks like. I can understand, and I don't have to deal with this now. I can understand the pressure of one act play, because
Mm-hmm.
yes, you do have trained eyes looking at that thing, and kind of their job is to pick it apart. But for all the like on campus stuff, it's like, meh, just do what you do, learn from it, and move on. Is there a particular show or shows that you would love to try to produce over your time at Temple that you can speak about? Because I know how sometimes kids get sensitive about, Miss Stewart said that we're gonna do this show, and so I don't necessarily want you to like reveal any secrets of where your mind's at and where seasons might go. But are there shows that you just kind of just getting a feel of what your flavor of theater might be for you? What are some of those things you're looking forward to?
Well, I have to say, Temple is one of the reasons I love Temple is because of the diversity. We're a really diverse campus, which is obviously why we could do Hairspray. And this is no secret, all of my students know this. My favorite musical is Memphis, and I would absolutely love to do that. And we just sort of have to have the right kids. So I don't think it's going to be, in the near future, but that is definitely something I could see us having the right kids for because of our diverse nature at Temple High School. So that is something that was like my dream show to direct that I would love to produce. I would also love, and I think maybe this is what we're starting with in the fall next year, is Metamorphosis. And I've already talked to my tech director, and he's started to do some research on that. So that possibly could be in the works.
Do you know if they've ever done that at Temple, or at least Natasha ever did it?
No, they
Okay.
haven't.
I mean, like, that's just such a scary show. Not in tech world. It's not the content of the show. I'm talking about the idea of a pool.
Yeah.
It's been done a lot, and I've wanted to do it. We pitched it for one act play one year,
Oh, okay.
to do Metamorphosis, and gave them both options of, we know how we could do the pool, and we know how we could do it to look like a pool, but not actually be water, on stage, because there is a rule about that stuff. But anyway, good luck. Have fun. It's a great show. It really is a great show, and if you can pull it off, it's gorgeous. It's absolutely one of the prettiest things you could do. But yeah, good for you.
I've introduced the idea to my tech director,
Yeah,
whose name is Andy Reed, and this is his first year with me, and he's just incredible
yeah,
too. And so he started researching, how that would happen, and I mentioned it to my fine arts director, who was not particularly excited that I was going to build a pool on stage,
yeah,
but she gave me permission because she's great. So
yeah, yeah. It's. I mean, it. There are some. There's some hesitation to all that. So as somebody that is carving out their own path along the way, what is it that's most difficult for you, to make sure that, again, this goes back to a little bit what I asked earlier about the Kayla stamp, I guess, if you will, the your unique perspective. But what is it that you are looking forward to in the future to kind of make yours, and that you make sure that this is kind of your legacy, if you will. And as a 29-year-old, talking about legacy, I get it. It's kind of a little early, but if you 40 years from now, you look back and you're like, what do you want your legacy to look like?
I, in creating a legacy, and it's definitely something I've thought about, because if I'm going to be here for the next however long at Temple, I hope to create a legacy. I want people to look back on that and think, she is someone who would do anything for her students. She is someone that pushes them, that strives for excellence. I will have a state title for one act. I'm speaking it into existence now, so you heard it first here. Kayla Stewart will have a state
Yeah,
title.
good.
But one act is not everything. It's not the end all be all. So I think there are other things that is important in creating a legacy. And I think that's, helping others and being a connection for other teachers in the state, because that's what's most important, is being available to help others. And I think that's important to me because so many people have helped me. And I think when people look back on me, I want them to say, she was always willing to help anyone. She was always there to do things for other directors. And, that's, I guess, sort of like what I want people to see me as.
That's good. Sorry, my mind drifted because, uh, and well, we'll talk about this off air in a second. But I had a thought, and then I was like, oh, I need to talk to Kayla about this. But we'll talk in a second. So I'm going to get you out of here on this. You've had a unique past few months, a unique start to the school year. You have not had much of a quote normal school year for the past few years, because with COVID, and your father passing and things like that, you really haven't had that normal first day, right? So all of that in mind, being that you've persevered thus far through all of this stuff, you've talked heavily about helping first year teachers or helping young teachers, and mentoring. What is it that you would, through all these things, what is it that you would kind of offer up to say, some bit of advice to these teachers? And you're still, I don't know if you're a veteran now. You're still a young person, but you're a veteran in the field. You're a veteran as an educator and a theater person. But you've also had such unique starts, such unique beginnings to each year. The past 3 years or so. Uh,
Mhm.
what kind of advice would you offer up to these younger teachers? These teachers that are starting out. These teachers coming from the University of Houston that are in the theater education program, and Texas State and such, and Sam. What kind of advice would you give to them?
My biggest piece of advice would be what Natasha told me when I was starting out. There is nothing you can't teach yourself. If you don't know the answer to something, look it up. If your students ask you something and you don't know, you be honest with them and tell them, you know what, I don't know the answer to that, but we're going to figure it out together. There were so many times that I had to do that. You can't fool kids. Like, they know when you're not telling the truth. So be honest and teach yourself and continue to educate yourself, continue to grow in your craft, in your field, and just keep pushing yourself to be better every single year, every single summer. Do the research, keep reading. I think, we get busy and we don't read as much as we should. And especially this year, I've really tried to carve out time every week to sit down and read new plays and try to find new works that I'm excited about. But at the end of the day, there's nothing you can't do. You have to teach yourself, and you have to put yourself out there to make those connections with people and to find help where you can.
Minor wisdom.